So our next speaker is not just any ordinary person. He's not just Patrick Jones, but he's Dr. Patrick Jones. That means he's very, very smart and he's studied very, very hard for a very, very long period of time. Okay, and he's now very sought after in his field, and in fact gets now asked to speak and share his wisdom and knowledge all over the world. And right now he is here in Dumageddon to help all of us. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause to Dr. Patrick Jones.
Very kind. Thanks.
I'll grab a table for that.
Lovely. All right, thank you very much. I'm excited about this talk because it's a mixture of a little bit of practice and a little bit of theory. So let's get straight into it. 3 areas that we're going to look at is quality of life and well-being, and are they different? Normally we think they're the same. I've got good quality of life. Yeah, my well-being's not bad. But they're actually quite different, so we want to figure that out. The next is, could mindfulness play a part in that? And does the research suggest anything? And then we've got to study, but then we've also got to put it into practice. So we're actually going to do some mindfulness exercises. They're all really short, well, if not exercises, explanations. That's where we're going. So these are what the researchers found are the top 5 areas that make the difference in our life. And if one of them is going badly, we tend to not say, my life's great. So we may have really good relationships, really great connections. We work hard. We get decent money for that work. We're pretty healthy, but no leisure because we're just doing all those others. So when that happens, people don't say they've got a great life. So you might have 10 out of 10 in the first 4, but if you get like 2 out of 10 in that 5th one, you really notice it. So the researchers said, kind of got to look after all of those 5. So it's not good enough to get those top 4 and then not be able to have a break. It's what they call the effort recovery model. I put in this effort, I've got to then have some kind of rejuvenation. Yep. So they're the top 5. But I've got another question for you. Let's say those top 5 are working well. What correlation do you think is between those top 5 and your well-being now? In other words, if you're doing super well at those 5, how likely is it that you're going to report great quality of life and great well-being? So who would think if you're doing fantastic in those top 5, you're automatically going to say you've got fantastic well-being? Who would say that? Some? Like, let's say almost like 100%. Yeah, if I'm 10 out of 10 in all of those, I'd report 10 out of 10 well-being or quality of life. People would say usually, well, it's probably 100% likely. Some people say, life conditions, if they're good, yeah, sure, but, that's not the only thing in life. So some might say 80%, Some might, a bit pessimistic, they might go like, the correlation between those life areas and my happiness is like, maybe 50%. Who would have thought it's this? 20%. When I looked at the research, and this is what they call these meta-analyses of all these different studies, and they came up with like, those top 5, like 8%, 10%, 15%, I've rounded up kindly to 20%. The reason, and the research in the beginning was going, well, where's the rest of it? We're looking like we're doing a lot of work in like what work is and leisure and relationships. And how come those people that have really good in those areas might still not feel that they're too happy? And the reason is because they found the other 80% was in here, about those areas. It's, in other words, if you're a pessimist and you've got a great life, you're not happy, basically. Yeah? Or if you're an optimist and you've got a terrible life, you might be happy. Yeah? And in fact, there was this Tibetan monk, and he was jailed for 20 years because the invasion of Tibet. For 20 years, they had to keep changing the guards on this Tibetan monk because he was so happy they kept giving him favours all the time. And in worst conditions, tiny cell used to do his push-ups late at night. It's not saying they're not important, so we don't want to say they're not important. They're definitely important, but it's this balance between external quality of life and internal well-being. And this is not just an idea. This is what the research has found again and again. So what we're going to look at is what they are and how to do that. Okay, I love this little frog. He's adapting. All right, what we've found, and I'm using a word, adaptation reflex, what this means is if there's a negative event in our life and it's bigger than our mental strength, our well-being goes down typically, yeah? It's called the adaptation reflex, and it's amazing. It's like we have body temperature. It can go up, and then if there's something changes in the system, homeostasis, it basically brings us back down to where we need to be, that's sort of safe. What is amazing is that this happens with almost every event. And they've looked at people who have won the lottery and people that have had a massive accident and they're quadriplegics in wheelchairs. And so people who win the lottery, their well-being skyrockets. Yeah? But within 8 to 12 weeks, it goes back to where it was. It's like, that's a bit unfortunate. I thought that would definitely do the trick. Okay, in Australia, they have this lottery called the Powerball, and basically the line is one Powerball and I'm out of here. Yeah, like it will change my life. They found this also with people who had these massive accidents. Obviously, well-being hugely drops, an acute spike, but then we've got somehow this ability, adaptation reflex, to make our way back up. Why? Because mindset is generally the main predictor of how we are going, not these life events. They make a difference. They what they call make an acute difference, but not a chronic difference, not an ongoing difference. However, if that event is really hard and we don't have the mental mindset to be able to make our way back up, then our well-being can go down and it can stay at a new level, a new baseline. And that's unfortunate, and that's when people really need to go and get some help elsewhere. Okay, I would like to suggest that we can work on our mindset so much that we can shift this from what I would call event well-being, which is based on those events. Generally, if they're going well, we generally feel okay, to inner well-being, which means if those life events are going well, then we're okay, but if they're not, we're still okay. That's what we want to look at. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's kind of like a buffer for life. But I'm very practical about this. We still need to keep our attention on those 5 life areas because they're critical. But it's the mixture of those life areas plus the internal state. So it's what I call having your cake and eat it too, having a great external quality of life whilst a solid inner well-being. It's the combination that we're after. Okie doke. So fortunately, mindfulness is one of the areas that we can look at that helps us with this, and it's moving into now the workplace quite a lot. In fact, Western Sydney University in Australia, they asked me to write a curriculum on mindfulness-based entrepreneurship. It's like a 4-part course. So it's really actually taking off in the workplace because it's seen as relevant. And I love this Bill Gates quote, so it's there. It's now in Virgin. Richard Branson talks about it as, that people use it to combat stress. Huffington Post founder, her competitive edge that she said. And Steve Jobs, of course, was a regular meditator. Used to sit in his house with no furniture, not even a chair, and sit on the floor. He liked simplicity and clarity. Google, their most popular program is a mindfulness program of all the training programs they run. And their clever name for it is Search Inside Yourself. It's quite good. But their results are amazing. Nearly 90% of people who practice these methods have experienced reduced stress, increased clarity, energy goes up, more calm, helps with their leadership because they're less kind of ego sensitive and more able to connect with other people. So these are the advantages. I won't go into this the whole lecture, but mindfulness and neuroscience, where they literally plug people in to machines, they've found that their brain, when we start to learn how to be more present, more mindful, and we'll look at what that means, the brain changes in different ways. There's this lovely thing called the default mode network and DMN. And essentially it's this part of the brain that when we're worrying and ruminating, it fires up, and it's just like lots of electrical activity everywhere. And when you're kind of becoming more mindful and more still and more present, this thing, there's a lot of unnecessary thinking, like that worrying and worrying that can go on. That's a great tool. That's a problem solving. Obviously, it's the analytical mind doing its job. But when it can't stop, it moves from problem solving to worrying, and now it's gone from functional to dysfunctional. So it's a very important tool. It helps us from problem solving. But this part of the brain, DMN, basically, with all electrical activity, starts to basically just become quieter, you could say. And so there's a lot of positive effects that they found when they plug us up to machines in terms of how we can manage conflict, generally more aware, more present, less mind-wandering. And finally, of course, it affects our mental health. We're more focused. There is a reduction in stress and anxiety. And we're more positive. Okay, so let's have a look. Searching for this new approach. So we'll have a quick look at these 10 areas. 5 first, present moment awareness. I'll just do a quick explanation of each one of them so that you know what we're talking about. Neutrality, or being able to be objective. Having clarity, being able to regulate or direct our attention. And this last one, which is quite incredible, thought suspension, the ability to just stop thinking altogether. Open heart, being able to be open but accepting. Be able to be relaxed. Be able to have a unique or fresh response to the moment, and have a sense of connection or equality with other people. Now, what I like about these is that these are lovely human attributes. And it's like if we were able to be like this, life would just be nicer. So what we're going to look at is how to just upskill in these 10 areas. What's also really nice is with these 10, as I'll go through each one of them, there's like a beginner, intermediate and advanced version for all of this. So the beginner level is just, well, I'll just start and I'll do some of this. The advanced level, these 10 factors or descriptors, all of this, by the way, is all research-based. And even these 10 here come from a meta-analysis of different critical reviews of different articles and different pre-post effects in terms of what makes a difference for our well-being. People who are demonstrating these 10 tend to be the happiest humans on the planet and the most powerful, where their mental state is so clear, but they're also so relaxed at the same time. The advantage of this is that the mental static that we have in our head falls away, and yet so we still can act, but we don't have the white noise that's unnecessary behind this. For example, I had my receptionist came back from New York this morning, ready to work, and she was done over and couldn't. I have 3 backup receptionists. They all couldn't. We had, try and get someone in an hour. So I was busy creating processes, setting up. We had 4 psychologists running across 3 offices all at once. So I was busy, creating processes, responding to emails, texting clients, all whilst I was just waiting to do my presentation. Amongst this, just trying to manage this crisis thing, because it's a full office with... And it helps if we don't have mental static of like worry and upset. It's just like we get it done, we're clear, and then we move on. And I think it's the advantage of efficiency is that we can just let things through. So this is some of the advantages that help with our work. Oh, and of course it helps with our leisure. I like the idea that, let's say we choose to go to a concert somewhere, we spend some money, we buy a good ticket, and 75% of the time we're thinking about something else. It's like, like we've not great value for the ticket. So part of this helps us turn up on our life. Okay, so before we start the quick training, this is just a chance just to be present in the room. So all we're going to just do is just a breathe in and just aware as you breathe in. You just have to be aware of your breath as you breathe in. And aware of your breath as you breathe out. Very simple, nothing more. One more time, just aware of my breath as I breathe in. Aware of my breath as I breathe out. Just aware of my sensations in the body from head to toe. Just aware, nothing more, just feeling sensations from head to toe like a wave just down the body. No judgment, just looking. And then simply aware of what I can hear. Not analysing it, just what I can hear. And just finally, what I can see. No judgment, just looking. And that's it. I love that bit because notice how the room goes a little still? We've done nothing. We've done no hard work, no real technique, just turning up in this moment. So we could do that process for a whole day, a whole retreat. But we just did it for half a minute and it's so nice. I call it like the office to the coffee machine meditation. Because you can literally just turn up as you're walking. Not analysing or thinking, just turning up. And the research, they call that the effort recovery model. You've done all this effort, give yourself a reward. It's just me time now. And it took 30 seconds. Of course, we can do it for longer. All right, let's get into them. So now we're going to do each of those 10 and I'll just tell you what they are. Animals are typically pretty good at this one. And what I was really pleased to hear is that here in the Philippines, being in the present, in the now, is one of the qualities of the culture, like just being in the present. So it's like a lot of people might be already naturally good at this one. Essentially, this is one of the 10. And what I'd like you to do on a piece of paper is just write at the end of each one of these where you are from 1 to 10, or from 0 to 10. So this is a present moment by moment awareness of what is happening now. Just here. Very simple, being in the moment. And there are options than this moment, of course. We can be in the past, which, as someone rightly said, is more correlated with if we're worrying too much about the past, it's more likely to be more of a depressing effect. Or we could be in the future, which tends to be more correlated with anxiety if we're worrying about the future. Or we could be in a third place, which is analysis, which is just somewhere in our head. So there are 3 other places that we can be right now. And as someone once said, there's 2 talks going on right now. There's the talk happening here, and there's potentially the talk that may be going on in your head. So it's what I call the real world and the virtual world. So the present moment awareness is just turning up in the world that I've got, not the virtual world that I'm creating elsewhere. So just 0 to 10, just where might you be about? Can I just be in the moment at any moment? Because this is, right now, this is the life we've got, this moment. So it's just, can I be in it? And again, I keep it quite simple. It's a very simple thing just to look at. Can I be here? And at other times during my day when I'm at work or with people, can I be there when I'm there? Or am I somewhere else? Which then helps me to be able to be with people. Can I be with someone when they're there? Or am I, when they're talking, somewhere preparing my own answer? Or somewhere else? Okay, very, very simple. Next one is neutrality or objectivity. This one's a little harder. Neutral, non-judgmental awareness. Can I watch my thoughts? Mindfulness has a great term. It says that it sees thoughts as passing mental events. Because if you watch them, they come and go. Thoughts have not much stamina. They don't tend to stay. If you don't pay attention to them, they move on and attract you with another one and another one. So one great skill is to be able to step back. And the big thing with mindfulness, they say, is the capacity to step back from your thoughts and observe them. Because some of them aren't serving us very well. I always love the tennis right at the end when they're doing like a match point, or basketball the last few minutes when it's like even. I love watching the mental game take place, because it's so funny, even like with cricketers when they're about to get 100 and they're on 98, their game totally changes, because the mental element now is there. But obviously when you're quite masterful, the great players, they can watch the thoughts come and go, because I've got a job to do. And those thoughts aren't relevant. Or you can jump on the thought. It's a useful one, because thinking is just, it's a process of how we problem solve the world. It's a discriminating tool. And we can obviously think to use thinking to get somewhere. But the option we want is to be able to step back from our thoughts and just let them come and go as well. I see it a bit like a gearbox, where in a car, we can be in gear, which is, you could say, is the thinking, because it's useful to get somewhere with the thinking. But when the car doesn't need to go anywhere, do I have the capacity to put that gearbox into neutral? Can it just be still? So it's more about control, about ability, if you like, because we have that ability. Okay, so that's the second. All right, clarity. This one is and it might sound obvious, the ability to know what I'm thinking or what my beliefs are. What I always find interesting is when I look back in history at prejudice, how at the time it was just how things were. It's just how we do it. But now we look back and go, geez, that was prejudicial or discriminating or biased or wrong, because we can see that. But with this one, clarity, it's, do I know what my beliefs are that are running my behaviours? There was a guy when I was a kid, and he used to go outside and smash his mat against the wall, like a bit too regularly to get the dust out. And occasionally we would hear him over the fence saying, "I'm not angry." It's like, we can hear you. He was what I would call a mystery even to himself. Yeah? So this is where we know what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and therefore how I'm acting. So we are as Dale said, we're self-aware. Now, sometimes in child therapy, when the teenager often, in fact, my very first patient in training, I was videoed by quite a critical supervisor, and there was a adolescent, and for literally 2 or 3 sessions, most of what he would say was, "I don't know," or just, It was really hard. So what sometimes we do is we get a A4 sheet of paper with lots of different faces, smiley faces, and grumpy and angry and interested, and we get them all, just point, what are you feeling? And we point to one of these. This is a bit like us, because sometimes we're not always able to say what we're thinking or feeling. And I think it's very important, because what we think and feel determines how we're behaving. So we don't want to be a mystery to ourselves because, as they say, like with the Johari window, there's how we see ourselves, but then how others see us, and then how we actually are, and then how the parts of us that neither they see nor we see. We want to be also in what they call psychometric testing or scales when we're doing assessments. We get someone to say how they are about a thing, and if we're not so sure, we get other people to tell us how they are. We call it concurrent validity. And we just want to make sure that what I know about myself is what other people know about me. Yeah? So it's probably good to check how I see myself. Is that how other people see myself? And maybe even to check in. So this is an important one. This one is the ability to interrupt thought if they're not going in a useful direction, and direct it to where we do need to go. So basically attention is the tool, so I can use it like a torch to take myself to wherever I need to go. So right now, let's just check in with the audience. Where's my attention? Sorry, cameraman. Okay, so where's my attention right now? It might be a little more present because, I don't know, I'm walking around. My voice is a little louder. But maybe just before, where was it? See how we can direct our attention quite clearly and cleanly? And then it can just mind wander, yeah? Wander, wander. Wandering, wandering. And then we can just be back here, right now, here. It's this ability to direct our attention wherever we want to, whenever we want to, at any given point. It's mastery. It's that ability to point it to a topic and leave it there and work till it's done and then move it off somewhere else, versus have a mind that's just going all over the place. So that's that one. 0 to 10, just write it down where you might be on that one. Okay, you ready for the advanced one? This is rare, but it does need to be included because it is a possibility. Love that one. The ability to not even think. Now, I was a psychologist for years. I'm retired now and manage other things. But even then, for years, I had no knowledge that this thing could stop. I didn't even know that there can be what I call, people say when they're unemployed, they're between jobs. Okay, this is the gap between thought. When you're between thoughts, I was staggered. I did not comprehend when I started training simply with some mindfulness and meditation techniques to simply just watch thoughts and just keep bringing my mind back, my attention back, to the present, to the present, to the present, and I'd have, I'd use various methods. Whenever there was a thought, I'd say, like who's aware of that thought, who's aware, and I'd do it like 100 times, 200 times when I was going to get some tea, and eventually I'd get 2 seconds between one thought and the next thought, like a couple of seconds. Wow, and then I get very excited and think about how there was nothing, and then it was 5 seconds, 10 seconds. When I got to half an hour, I was like, it requires a lot of concentration building up, half a minute, 2 minutes. I felt I had broken the back of the mind at last. I had got control over this vehicle at last. And I could use it and direct it like a torch to wherever I needed. Now I want to highlight that the gap is no better than thinking. It just should be an option because, like the body, it can stop when not required. It's a tool, like the machine, the thought, feeling, sensation machine. There is, of course, in this last sentence, an avenue or a doorway into more in that gap. Because we're now not in limited thinking world, we're in an open place because remember we learnt words. Every word we use and every thought we have comes from letters we learnt when we were like 1 or 2 years old. And most of these words came from when we were in primary school, most of the words in our head, apart from the more complex ones. So there was a time when we didn't think, all of us. And it's not that that's better, because that's just young and innocent. The wise version is where we have that option to simply be and also think amazingly in a complex, amazing, precise ways. It's that choice. And in that place, it's so lovely just to rest. Everything drops away, the tension drops out of the body, and there's just a being. And you can connect to this sense of everything else, nature, others. So, and from this, we can also still work, even if sometimes thinking isn't necessary all the time. Like when I make a cup of tea or coffee, thinking isn't required. You can do that and just be in this lovely, relaxed place. So, just one of the options, but the more advanced level. Okay, so they were the top 5, and now we're just looking at the others, because we are not just head people, we're also heart people. And this one is a really good one. It's openness to new things. It's not being what I would say an old person when I'm young, not thinking like I'm old, like, oh, I can't do that. No, I don't know, I'm not used to that. It's this ability, well, tell me more about it. Let me have a think. Let me look at it. It's openness to growth. This one is acceptance. This is one of the hardest ones. It's the ability to allow good or bad feelings, no matter what. Now, I say good feelings because sometimes people aren't open to great feelings. It's like, but it's the ability to allow upsetting feelings to come and go. Because life will do it all day long. Can I just let them through? This one, response freshness. Cute! To be able to be fresh and open in a new moment, like a child. It's like, oh, so I haven't done this before. Or yes, I have done this before, but can I see this in a different way? How does that look? From a new perspective, the ability to be able to just look freshly. Or am I a little bit of, just always, this is how we always do it. 0 to 10, where are you? You're kind of a bit, don't like change. Or I'm open to something and doing it a different way. Relaxation. This one, believe it or not, is quite hard. It's a natural relaxation response to things that happen versus tension. When something happens, it's my first reaction tension, it's a threat. Always like, oh, okay. Can I just be relaxed as events occur? Not seeing them as a threat. Because sometimes people are just in an ongoing state of being tense about every new thing. Can I just be relaxed? And the final one is this. Basically to treat people with kindness. And this is the second sentence is really the critical bit. To see that every human being wants 2 things. It's that simple. They want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. That's it. And then we just get really creative about how we do that in our life. So many different ways. So this is the exercise just to be aware of as we finish. Is just, if they're having difficulty with someone, just to say, in one way they're just like me. They don't want to suffer. And just as I don't want to suffer, may they not. At least to have that intention. Even if you still need to have a hard conversation with them, you're coming from that place that we both don't want to suffer, do we? And this person's like me as well, they want to be happy. So just as I want to be, may they be. And how do we basically create win-win here? That's essentially what that one is. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up. We're putting out a book this year, thanks to the amazing Lightning Sites websites. I think it's going to look super cool. So if you want to follow up any more, that's what it's going to look like. If you want to follow any of this work, you would go to simply drpatrickjones.com, and I have all my various things there, the Dr. Patrick Jones Official on Insta and Facebook and etc.